Hello, everyone, and welcome to a Buckeye Bridge series entitled Culinary Passport. And so in this series, my colleagues and I are going to be sharing about our times abroad and especially sharing some recipes that we learned while abroad. So my name is Jeff Nelson. I'm an education abroad specialist, and I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves as well.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jenna Azate. I'm also an education abroad specialist.
And I'm Kyle Sturgis. I'm Associate Director for Education Abroad.
So in these videos, each of us are going to be preparing a recipe that we learned and that we ate while abroad during our time on these programs. And I'm going to be sharing them with you, so hopefully you can learn how to make some delicious new food and explore a new culture along the way. So during my undergraduate years, I spent a month on a service learning study abroad program to Nepal. And so during this time, we traveled to Kathmandu to work with a nonprofit organization that helps to combat the flow of sex trafficking from Nepal to India, and also visited some of their other services such as children's homes throughout the country. And really got to learn a lot about the different ways that they're trying to help improve lives. And so one of the most famous dishes that we were able to eat in Nepal were called Momos. And so these are Tibetan dumplings that have become very popular in Nepal. You can find them everywhere in restaurants or on little carts in the street. They are delicious dumplings. And so what sets them apart maybe from other dumplings that you might have had from other locations around the world, there's just a lot of very delicious spices. And so you can find them with, they usually have meat in them, vegetables, and a lot of very warm spices. So they're very delicious. And so I'm going to show you how to make these today. And so we're actually going to start with the sauce. So when I was in Nepal, they would often come with a sauce that you would dip your momos in, or even sometimes it was a soup that your momos were swimming in. It was very delicious. But we're going to start. I'm going to show you how to make the sauce, and then we're going to make the momos themselves. So here in this pot, I have about 10 tomatoes, a couple cloves of garlic, 3 serrano chilies with the seeds removed, so it's not too spicy, and 1 whole onion. And then I've gone ahead and roasted this in the oven at about 425 degrees for approximately 30 minutes. So there's that. And then to that, I'm going to add about a few tablespoons of lemon juice. I'm going to add some salt and pepper. And then in here, I have some sesame seeds and some cumin seeds that I've gone ahead and toasted. Toasting helps just to bring out some extra flavor from spices. And then in here, I have Sichuan peppercorns and fenugreek seeds. So these Sichuan peppercorns, if you've never had them before, they're not like a peppercorn, like a black peppercorn that we're very familiar with. They're actually seed husks. And they're very fragrant to smell. And they're not spicy. They actually kind of numb your mouth and tongue a little bit. It's a very interesting sensation. They're very great. And also some fenugreek seeds. And so these, I just went ahead and fried them up in a little bit of oil just to help bring out their flavor.
Jeff, if I want to cook these at home, where can I find some of these spices? I'm not sure I've seen these in my grocery store before.
Yeah, so a lot of these spices, especially like the fenugreek or the Sichuan peppercorns, you can find those in different international grocery stores. There's a lot of them all over Columbus, so definitely check them out. You can also order them online. So a lot of great places to find this. And then to that as well, I have about a cup of cilantro. So we're just going to pop that in. And so once we have everything in the bowl, we're going to go ahead and blend it. If you have a blender, like a stand blender that works very well. I have an immersion blender, so I'm going to go ahead and use this. So it might get a little loud for a second, but
So, Jeff, when you were in Nepal, did you actually get to make momos while you were there, or is this your first time doing it?
So while we were in Nepal, I actually wasn't able to make momos while I was there. We stayed at a hotel during the time, so we weren't able to actually kind of make our own food. However, I have made these multiple times since, and they're very delicious, and they take me right back to the streets of Kathmandu.
Yeah, and then you mentioned that you roasted everything, right? Before, like the tomatoes and all that. Is that sauce served warm, or is it room temperature? Like, how's it best served?
Typically, when it's kind of the more like thicker chutney, it's typically often served more like cold or room temperature. But if you can also add water to make it more of a soup, which is also a common way, and that would be served hot. So once you are done, it'll be a nice little chutney. And so depending on the quality of your store-bought tomatoes, sometimes they can be not so great. I sometimes find it helpful just to add a little bit of crushed canned tomato just to kind of help augment the tomato flavor. But so now we are going to take this and put this on the stovetop and let it simmer for a while we make our momos. This will allow this to reduce. And again, we can serve it like this, or we will be adding water to make it more of a soup. So I'm going to go put this on the stovetop. All right, so now we will begin the actual momo filling itself. So today we'll be using ground chicken. In Nepal, we typically had chicken momos, but they often also came in vegetable momos, and also buffalo, water buffalo, since cows are not eaten in Nepal. The alternative was water buffalo. And so we did often see those. I believe I had them while I was there. But definitely probably one of the more common ones would be chicken. So in my bowl, I have about 2.5 pounds of ground chicken. And at that, we're going to take one whole onion that has been finely chopped. And you want to make sure it's finely chopped so that it cooks when we will steam the momos.
So those are raw onions right now?
Correct. Those are raw onions. In here, I have grated garlic and ginger. And so this is where a lot of the very strong flavor of the momo will come from. Very delicious.
So it looks like you're also using a mix of dried spices and fresh spices. Yeah? Okay.
Yes. Again, some cilantro. So we have about a cup of finely chopped cilantro, adding that in. And finally, the last thing that we're going to add this is a mixture of dry spices. So in here, we have cumin, we have cinnamon, salt, and pepper. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So these are all the ingredients for the filling. So we're just going to go ahead and make sure it's all mixed together and well incorporated.
So Jeff, while you're doing that, Nepal is not the most traditional of locations for study abroad. What made you choose to go to Nepal?
Yeah, so when I was actually in my second semester of my first year of college, I had heard about this program at my school where you could spend your January interterm abroad in another country during like a service learning program. And so I went to the initial meeting. And, there were places in South America that I could go to, locations in Europe, location in Africa. But as I was looking through, I, saw Nepal, and it very much just jumped out at me, mainly because at that point in my life, I knew nothing about Nepal. I knew it was right above India, and it was in Central Asia. but I really had no clue about Nepal. And I think that's like one thing that initially attracted me was just that it was a place that I could really like spend time learning about and learn something new about going there.
Was there anything that really surprised you about culture in Nepal? Like, did you have any difficulties, adjusting to, anything different culturally?
Yes, I remember, especially visiting Nepal, I think oftentimes Nepal can be kind of looked at as India's little brother. However, Nepal is very much its own culture. Nepal is a very interesting mix of both like Hinduism and Buddhism. And so it's really, it's just so much of Nepal is just very different than like our normal lives here in the United States. I mean, so even something as small as like, if you are handing something to someone, you do it with your right hand because you use your left hand to clean yourself. Little things paying attention to. But it was so fascinating learning about like the Nepali culture and especially their history, and learning about like how all these things impact their everyday lives. So yeah. All right, so our filling is now pretty well incorporated. So I'm going to set this aside for 1 second. All right, now for the wrapper, I took 4 cups of flour and mixed that with about 1.5 cups of room temperature water, and I let that sit for a while. And so in order to make the wrappers, you're going to pull out some dough. You're going to pull off gumball size little pockets of dough.
And you said that's just flour and water?
Flour and water, that's it.
How do you know when it's ready?
So after you mix it, make sure it's thoroughly well incorporated. You want to knead it for, about 5 minutes or so. And then you want to let it sit for an hour so that, the gluten strands can develop and it can come a nice firm dough. Go ahead and just add a little bit of flour to my work surface so that these don't stick. So I'm going to take one of these guys and we're going to use a rolling pin. If you have a small rolling pin, that works very well. This one's a little large. That's what I have. And so we are going to take this. You want to roll these out pretty thin. You don't want to have too thick of a wrapper, or else just kind of eating a thick piece of dough when you're kind of eating your momo. So you want to roll it out nice and thin, and you want to kind of make it as circular as you can. And so here's one. It's pretty nice. So we're going to set that aside. I'm going to roll out one more. And then we're going to start cooking these.
I think it's we just mentioned that rolling pin is what you had, right? I think that's really important that, people get inspired to get in the kitchen regardless of if they have the quote unquote right tools, right? Or the authentic ingredients. Sometimes we just don't have access to that. I think the biggest part is just getting in there, having fun and making good food and, doing our best to help us kind of recall our times abroad,
Absolutely.
Being able to get in there and just do it. It's definitely very nostalgic.
All right, so I also have a few wrappers ready to go over here. All right, and now we are going to begin filling our momos. So we're going to take one of our wrappers. We're going to take about a tablespoon of our chicken mixture. I'm going to place it directly in the center. Now, I've watched many videos about how to fold these, and it's still a work in progress. So we're going to take this, and we're going to kind of fold up the middle and pinch, and kind of fold together, increase and pinch the way down, and then do the same on the other side. So by the end, we have a nice little momo like this. So let's do another one.
So with that you said about 2.5 pounds of ground chicken.
Correct.
About how many momos do you think that would make? Sounds like a lot.
Yes, so this will make a lot of momos. This will make, so typically when we were in Nepal and we'd order momos, a typical order would come with about 8 to 10 momos. And so this recipe will make probably about close to 40 or so individual momos.
And do we maybe get to sample some of those later?
Maybe.
And drop them off at our doorsteps.
I won't say no to a small dinner drop-off.
How many times have you made that this year during the global pandemic?
How many times have you made momos?
Yeah.
A few times.
A few times, yeah. Now, were you a cook before, you got into the kitchen making momos and that kind of stuff? Do you like to cook and bake other things
yes,
too?
I very much like to cook and bake. It really started when I was in high school, and even before that, actually, just cooking food for my family. And yeah, so especially like when I came back from Nepal, I really wanted to try and make these just as a way to remember my time there, and enjoy delicious food again.
Yeah.
So for those people who may not be quite as confident in their cooking skills or anything like that, can you find momos in Columbus anywhere? Is there anywhere near campus that, I could go and try these?
Yes. So there are a couple different places here in Columbus that you can go and try out momos. You can find them on Google. Definitely encourage you to go try them out because they are very, very good. All right. So now I have 4 completed momos. Again, typically, like if you're going to eat this kind of like as a main entree, typically it's served like 8 to 10. But so we're going to start with these 4. And so I have an Instant Pot steamer to my side. So I'm going to go ahead and take the steaming tray and place the momos in. When you place these in, make sure that, you want to put as many as you can in the steamer at a time. But also don't, make sure they're not touching each other. And so we're going to put this in the steamer. And then typically it takes about 10 minutes to steam. And so, if you have a steamer like this, you can do that. Or if you have a steaming basket that you can put over top a pot of boiling water on the stove, that works as well. So I'm going to set this for about 10 minutes. And then that'll begin. So do you have any questions about momos or Nepal while we wait for them to steam?
Yeah. So Jeff, sorry, Kyle, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask a quick question. Like, these are steamed, but are there fried momos or?
Yes. And so normally, they're steamed to begin with. But so we often also had like pan fried momos. And so after they steam, just add them to, a skillet with some oil and pan fry them. That's actually also a very popular way of reheating your momos maybe the next day, and kind of using them as leftovers is a great way to use that. They also actually I had a few of them sometimes deep fried as well. But definitely like the most popular and kind of normal way that you see them would be just regular steamed.
So earlier you mentioned that just daily life in Nepal was just really different from anything you've experienced in the United States. Can you tell us a little bit about like your day-to-day life in Nepal?
Yeah, so when we were in Nepal, we stayed in Tamil, which is the more like tourist district of Kathmandu. And so every morning we would wake up and we'd go to like one of the nearby restaurants and just grab something for breakfast. And then we would go over to the organization that we were working with. We would go over to their office. And usually in the mornings, we would have kind of like our class where, we would have the chance to learn about, the organization and kind of the work that they were doing, but also like the different social issues that Nepal is facing. And so we would have different lectures on human trafficking or on the pervasiveness of like street children in Nepal. And so we'd learn about these different issues every day. And then usually after grabbing lunch, we would go and either visit some of the children's homes throughout the country and learn about, the work that they were doing to help support these children. And so there are two Nepalis who act as house parents, and they will take in children who either have been abandoned by their families, or they've grown up as children on the street, or if there's just a family nearby who's unable to take care of their child. And so these children's homes help to provide food, shelter, education for these kids in kind of a loving, supportive environment. And so we'd go and learn about these different efforts that the organization is doing. Get to interact with the kids, which was definitely a lot of fun. And then we also went on a few different field trips throughout the country during our time. So one weekend we traveled down to the Nepal-India border. And so this organization has multiple different monitoring stations all along the Nepal-India border, where they actively intercept women and children who are being trafficked. And so we actually got to meet with some of the anti-trafficking teams, kind of learn about what their days look like as they are intercepting these people who are being trafficked, usually unknowingly. So it's a very sad situation, but this organization does a lot to help protect these women's and children's lives. And so we normally end the day by having dinner together and then exploring different places around the city. So such as different landmarks. We were able to visit Swayambhunath, which is a big, kind of colloquially known as the monkey temple. We had to climb this giant set of stairs to get to the top of this hill. And there's monkeys everywhere. Don't look them in the eye. And then, we were able to visit Pashupatinath, which is a big Hindu temple complex. We also were able to visit different stupas, which are kind of large domes, and is especially important in the Buddhist religion. So just a lot of different religious sites. And it's a very, very beautiful country. Kathmandu itself is kind of in a valley. And so you just kind of look up out of Kathmandu, and on a clear day, you can just see the Himalayas all around you. And it's very beautiful.
What's the weather like there? I imagine it's not anything like January in Columbus.
Yeah, so when we were there during the month of January. And during the day, it would get up to about 60, 65 degrees maybe. So it was chilly a little chilly during the day. I mean, we normally had a long sleeve t-shirt on or something. During the night, though, it would get pretty cold. And we did not have access to heat where we were staying, and a lot of the Nepalis don't have access to heat either. And so at night, it would get pretty cold, and we'd be wrapped up in all of the clothes that we had brought with us and our blankets. Yeah, so about 60 or so degrees during the day, during the month of January.
I wish we had that here.
So when you chose to, go to Nepal, were you studying, human rights and, the trafficking before? Was this part of your degree program? Was it?
Yeah, so for this program, we actually took an entire semester-length course the semester beforehand. And so, we spent time learning about, the history and culture of Nepal, learning about human trafficking and the different social issues that we were looking at. So, we definitely spent a lot of time preparing for it, which I feel like was very beneficial. So when we got there, it was, we weren't using all of our time just learning, from the very beginning. Like we already had a foundational understanding of the different issues and of Nepal itself. No matter how much you study, when you go somewhere for the first time, it's still going to be a lot to take in and learn. But I feel like it was definitely really helpful for us having spent all that time learning together beforehand.
Yeah, so that's similar to some of the programs that we offer, having the autumn semester class with the winter break travel. It sounds somewhat similar. It's a good opportunity.
So what is maybe one piece of advice that you'd pass on to a student who's considering study abroad right now?
I mean, obviously the three of us here would definitely say you should study abroad. I mean, we all have had the chance to do it, and it's all impacted us greatly. I think one maybe unique piece of advice that I would offer is, if you're looking at different programs, and you're looking at a few that, you could use towards your degree, I would say choose maybe the program that is going to challenge you more. Choose the program that's maybe in maybe less than traditional location. So we do offer a lot of different programs all around the world. We have a lot of students who want to travel to Europe, which is fantastic. I love Europe and I would go there any chance I could get. But I think one thing for me when I was looking at these different programs was, when I saw Nepal listed, I thought to myself, when am I ever going to get to be able to go to Nepal? That's not a place that the average person just goes. And I think, especially going to a place that I didn't have originally as much familiarity with, it was a much more challenging experience because I was in a place and a culture that was totally different than my own. And so, it really forced me to see things from a new perspective, definitely pushed me out of my comfort zones. And so I definitely encourage, if you're looking at a couple different programs and trying to decide which one you want to do, choose one that, you might be less familiar with. Choose one that's going to be a bit more challenging because you'll definitely grow a lot as a result.
Absolutely. There's something to be said about the growth you get from that level of discomfort, or something that really challenges the way you see everyday life.
It sounds like this was pretty early on in your travels too, right?
Yeah, so this was definitely my first major international experience. And so so this was my sophomore year of undergrad. And since then I've been able to travel a lot more. I feel like this is really what kind of sparked my interest in working in study abroad. And so actually for my final 2 years of undergrad, I actually served as one of the student co-directors of this service learning program. And so I was able to work with other students who were going on these same programs and traveling abroad. I was able to help prepare teams that were going to go back to Nepal. So that was always really exciting. Yeah. So since then, I've been able to travel to Ireland and the UK, Germany, Japan. So this has definitely sparked a very wide and long interest in traveling abroad.
Mentioning these skills and whatnot that you learned, on this trip to Nepal, on your study abroad to Nepal, it probably impacted the way you're able to travel in the future too, with as far as comfort levels and being just more adaptable, more kind of flexible in how you travel, where you travel, how you prepare to travel.
Right. So Jeff, I'm super excited for these momos, but what other delicious Nepali foods did you have while you were abroad?
Yeah, so they're the main kind of dish that most Nepalis eat most every day of their lives would be dal bhat. Dal bhat is usually rice with kind of like a lentil soup on top of the rice. And then it's often served with curried vegetables, sometimes meat. And for a lot of Nepalis, that is their everyday meal. So definitely had that. Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't have access to kitchens when we were there. So we actually did eat out at different restaurants during the day. But every time we got really good Nepali food, it was always worth it.
Sounds so good.
Have you been able to keep in touch with anybody that you met while you were in Nepal?
Yeah, so I've definitely been able to keep in touch with different people I met there, or even just the people that I traveled with. And I think one thing that's really cool is during my time as the student co-director of this program, I got to talk with a friend of mine who had come back from Nepal the year after I went. And, he had such a transformational experience there. So much so that he actually moved there to work with this organization. So he works doing a lot of like data processing and tracking, and so that they can, track numbers with trafficking and have reliable data that they can help to guide their efforts. So it's been really cool just watching him and his family work over in Nepal. And just, it's really encouraging to see the work that they do.
Would you say that your experience maybe kind of helped lead you into a career in education abroad, international education?
Oh, definitely. As I said before, this was definitely my first major international experience. And, I'm sure as with both of you, after that first time, you catch the bug,
Yeah.
And, and it gets a hold of you and you just want to continue traveling. I think one way that, especially this kind of saw itself through was, working as the student co-director during my time in undergrad. And then when I started my master's program in higher education and student affairs, I actually worked in the study abroad office as a graduate assistant. So everything kind of looks back to Nepal.
Yeah.
So Jeff, once travel opens up again, what's number one on your list? Where are you going to go?
Such a hard
question. Okay, I guess maybe the real answer and the if money were no option answer.
I would definitely love to return to Nepal or to Japan. I feel like those are two countries. I've been to both of them, but they have definitely grabbed a hold of me dearly. As a classically trained musician, I would also very much love to go to Vienna. But right now, at this point, I would take a plane ride to anywhere if it were possible.
Me too. Yes. Jeff, do you have a favorite memory from your time in Nepal? Anything that you just think about all the time? The nostalgia factor.
Yeah, so I have two. One would be, so we spent kind of the first week or so in Kathmandu, the capital city. However, for the second set of time while we were there, we went out to Pokhara, which is a town out west from Kathmandu. And it's I believe, the second most populated town in Nepal. This is just an absolutely stunningly gorgeous location. In the center of town, there's this big lake. And then all around the lake is just giant snow-capped mountains. And so one morning, we actually woke up around 4:00 and climbed one of the nearby mountains, which compared to everything around it was more an anthill. But so we climbed this hill at 4 a.m. I was very tired. I was like, this can't be worth it, climbing this hill at this early hour. But when we got to the top, we were greeted by the most beautiful sunrise that I have ever seen in my life. The sun coming out of the Himalayas in the morning, and you just looked around, there's just mountains everywhere. So I feel like that was definitely one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Definitely one of the most memorable experiences of my time in Nepal. And I would say, secondly, one of my favorite memories actually happened a few years later. And so when I was in Japan, I was working with a couple in the northern part of Japan that was destroyed by the earthquake and tsunami back in 2013. So I was teaching music in some of the elementary schools, doing private lessons with students, kind of doing performances in the town. And the one day, the couple that I was staying with, they asked, hey, let's go out to dinner. They said, do you like Indian food? I said, yes, I love Indian food. And so we went to this Indian restaurant. And when I walked in the door, I immediately realized that this was not an Indian restaurant. It was actually a Nepali restaurant. I don't know, marketing wise, they thought, more people would come if it was Indian. But when I walked in, I was greeted by these pictures all over the walls. And to my surprise, I knew every single one of them. They were the big locations around Kathmandu. And so the main chef, he came over to take our order. And so through Japanese, I was speaking to a Nepali man. Being translated in English, it was a very international and weird experience. But so, I was able to find out where he lived in Nepal. And then I kind of walked over to the pictures and I pointed at each one and said what each one was. And you could just see this giant smile on his face. And then, as we were leaving, I was able to thank him in his own language. Here I am in northern Japan, thousands of miles away from another experience that I had in Nepal and having just this really cool international connection. So that was one of my favorite memories that happened after the fact.
Really cool. Now, I keep hearing this common thread of, just Nepal kind of just getting lumped in with India. How have you seen in your time, in your relationships with people in Nepal, how do they feel about that? Is it, I'll let you answer.
Yeah, they're definitely different places. They have different histories. Throughout history, Nepal has kind of been sandwiched and Nepal's had a lot of different influences on it. Because to the south of Nepal, you have India. To the north of Nepal, you have China. So there's been a lot of different competing interests, which has led to, a unique culture. Even just the food, momos being, kind of an import from Tibet. And the kind of the common mix of Hinduism and Buddhism. So, it's very much its unique own thing. The currency in India is the rupee. The currency in Nepal is the Nepali rupee. So just, it's definitely its own unique thing, and they try to keep their uniqueness to them. So it looks like our momos are ready to go. So here I have our soup. So I did add some water to it. And so it's nice and warm. So here's the big grand reveal. So here I have our 4 momos that we made. They smell delicious. I'm very excited to dig into them.
Can you describe the smell? I need more description.
Definitely smell that garlic and the ginger and all those really warm spices that we added to it. Definitely present. So I'm going to take these, I'm going to put them directly into the soup.
So you said a typical order was probably 8 to 10, but what is a serving?
That would be if you were to eat that as, if that would be your only thing that you'd be eating for dinner, that would kind of be your serving. Sometimes, you get momos as an appetizer, for your main entree, but they could also kind of be eaten as a main course themselves. So here we have our momos in our soup. So go ahead and give it a try.
So jealous.
This is quite honestly the worst part about working from home right now.
Yeah.
Yes,
how does it stand up to the ones you had in Nepal?
Those will always be the best. If you have a chance to try, momos at a local place, definitely do that. But this is definitely a good second. So good. Well, thank you for watching this Buckeye Bridge Culinary Passport with us. Stay tuned for more editions of Culinary Passport to come, when Jenna and Kyle will be showing us how to make their own recipes from their study abroad experiences. If you are interested in learning more about what it would be like to have your own international experience during your time at Ohio State, you can please visit our website at educationabroad.osu.edu. Look through the different programs available. If you would like to schedule an appointment with an advisor, you can email us at abroadadvisor@osu.edu, and we'd be happy to help you out. So thank you for watching.